Hurricane Harvey is expected to be upgraded to a Cat 3 before making landfall late tonight about 70 miles northeast of Corpus Christi. Texas officials are warning people in low-lying areas to get out now. Forecasters are predicting life-threatening winds and flooding. Meteorologist Janice Dean is live in the Fox Extreme Weather Center. And as you look at this, the storm is almost the size of Texas on the map.
Yeah, and we're approaching landfall within the next couple of hours, Harris. And I'm nervous because this is something we've maybe never seen before in terms of hurricane landfalls. Not only a major hurricane, one in which we haven't seen a major hurricane in 12 years. Wilma was the last time in 2005. But the legacy of this storm is going to be the flooding, and epic flooding, a year's worth of rain in just a matter of hours across the Texas coast. So there's what we have right now, a latest advisory coming out, I believe at 1 o'clock. They're updating them every 2 hours now, the positioning of the storm. Hurricane hunters have been flying into this storm and noticing that we are seeing a strengthening pattern. So Category 3 major hurricane making landfall overnight tonight and then stalling. And that's the really dangerous part of this storm system. It's going to stall. The reason why we think it's going to strengthen, very warm waters in the Gulf of Mexico and nothing to tear this storm apart in the upper levels of the atmosphere. So it is just going to sit and spin for days in some cases. And if the center of the storm remains offshore, it's going to have the fuel that it needs to bring in more moisture. And that is the big concern. Potential rainfall, we've been, saying 3 feet of rain. And I mean, the models consistently say over 3 feet of rain is possible in isolated areas. And you can see in and around the Houston area, I mean, the numbers are epic. That's why you're seeing catastrophic, life-threatening, get out if you're told to do so. And this actually could change the landscape of the Texas coastline. This is the Euro model. We rely on two major models, the European and the GFS. And we've been watching this one because as this storm makes landfall overnight tonight, we expect it to linger. Nothing in the upper levels to steer this thing. We think the potential is for it to move out into the Gulf of Mexico again and perhaps make a second landfall around the Houston area on Wednesday. Again, potentially a devastating disaster in the making, Harris, and that's why we're so concerned. The tropical models are in good consensus over the next 12 to 18 hours, and then look what happens. It completely falls apart, and it doesn't know what to do because we've got these very weak steering patterns in and around the hurricane. We've got high pressure across Florida, high pressure across the southwest. We think this one's going to win out and push this storm offshore again as we get into the weekend. And the rainfall totals are epic, potentially a disaster. And that's why our prayers out to the folks across Texas, because it could be something that we have never seen before in hurricane history.
Well, and the times that you've said that to us, Janice, and things have held together, we do want to pray for them, and we mostly want to get people out of the way and to listen to you. We'll come back as the news warrants this hour. Thank you very much. And as Hurricane Harvey barrels toward the Texas coast, President Trump is promising federal aid to assist in preparation as well as rescue and recovery efforts, with all eyes on the president as he handles the first natural disaster of his presidency. Senator Charles Grassley tweeted this about the president, this warning: keep on top of Hurricane Harvey. Don't make same mistake President Bush made with Katrina. Chief White House correspondent John Roberts is on the North Lawn now. John?
I was speaking with senior administration officials a short time ago, Harris, and they told me that the White House is acutely aware of what happened with the Bush administration and its initial response to Hurricane Katrina, and they are determined not to repeat the mistakes of the past. The president tweeting just a short time ago, quote, "I have spoken with Governor Abbott of Texas and Louisiana Governor Edwards, closely monitoring Hurricane Harvey developments and here to assist as needed." The president had an Oval Office briefing in the 10 a.m. hour. Present were Tom Bossert and John Kelly, Bossert being his Homeland Security Advisor, John Kelly, the Chief of Staff, Elaine Duke, the acting DHS Secretary, and Brock Long, who's the FEMA Director, were also there. The president just tweeted about that, by the way. Some of the president's communications and social media staff were there as well, all prepared to respond to the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey. And here's how Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the press secretary, put it yesterday. Listen.
We are in great shape having General Kelly sitting next to the president throughout this process, and probably no better chief of staff for the president during the hurricane season. And the president has been briefed and will continue to be updated as the storm progresses.
The FEMA director, Brock Long, tweeted out just a short time ago from the National Emergency Response Coordination Center at FEMA saying, quote, "We're monitoring Hurricane Harvey closely. We're working around the clock to prepare and support the state's efforts." Also putting out pictures today of generators on the back of flatbed trucks. FEMA has established a support base, an incident support base at Randolph Auxiliary Airfield near Seguin, Texas. They're pre-positioning supplies there. In addition to these generators, they have water, meals, blankets, and many other supplies. FEMA warning that the window to evacuate is rapidly coming to a close. And as Janice Dean was saying, Harris, this isn't something that likely will be felt its full impacts when the hurricane comes ashore. In that area of the Texas coast, there are no big cities, but it hangs around and dumps feet of water on areas like Houston and Galveston and Corpus Christi. That's when we could really see the bad stuff. So this is something that can play out over a number of days. We may be into Tuesday or Wednesday before we know the full effect of this.
Well, and the problem too, John, as we've mentioned real quickly before we let you go, is if you are planning to leave your home, you have to go farther inland than you might anticipate based on the reach of the storm. And the time you're gone could cause some hardship for people staying in hotels, whatnot.
There's no question
to think about.
And when we see that, you know, FEMA is pre-positioning in Seguin, Texas, that is right next to San Antonio. So they're figuring that they've got to go that far inland to make sure that they're safe. So people who are evacuating from the Corpus Christi area down there around Galveston, they've got to go far inland. And as you said, they'll be away from home for some time.
Hope people take some people in like family. John Roberts, thank you very much. All right, so we're talking about a test for the president, and I saw you nodding. Your thoughts, David?
Well, I mean, we're not going to have another good job Brownie moment, as remember during Bush and Katrina. One of the reasons is you've got a state that's cooperating. You've got localities that are cooperating. You've got coordination going on ahead of this. In the case of Houston, and I lived in Houston for 4 years, you have a better highway system. You have a better escape route going northward with I-45 especially. You can get out and out to Seguin, San Antonio, Austin. You can move inland. You can even move up towards Dallas, where there are mid-cities along the way. So they've got a better path. Louisiana should be of concern, not only for the oil industry and energy industry and oil production dropping, but I-10 is a major corridor, 848 miles across Texas. Then you've got the Louisiana all the way to New Orleans. So you're talking about an area where there's very little exit, very few exit points going straight across the bottom of the country. But in Houston, they're well prepared. I was there. I watched literally houses come down the Trinity River on fire in '94. The potential is there. I have a lot of friends still there, and I know that they're doing their best in the broadcast world to make people aware of what's going on.
I want to talk about what's going on behind the president that is a huge difference, perhaps, than anything we've ever seen before, and that is John Kelly, as Chief of Staff, former Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, under which FEMA was. That makes a difference. That's the type of leadership you have next to the president in the White House.
I think that is going to make a world of difference. He is really the ideal person to have inside the White House, the person who has the most time, face time with the president every single day, arguably the most influence over the way he's thinking about this at this time. So that's a huge plus for the president to have in his pocket. We all know this is much bigger. You know, a weather disaster like this is much bigger, a potential weather disaster is much bigger than the president and the politics surrounding it. But it is also true that storms like this can make or break presidencies. We've seen it happen in the past. It didn't break the Bush presidency, but if you read what Andy Card has said and Josh Bolton, chiefs of staff to President George W. Bush, they will tell you that Hurricane Katrina was a low point for that presidency. Not for any one term, not for any one individual, but for the entire presidency.
Well, the photo of President Bush staring out of the airplane window, Air Force One's window, flying over the devastation in Louisiana. And I think that to the president, the only thing that he should be talking about, the only thing that he should be tweeting about until this storm is out of the way are the people of this region and the response to this disaster, this looming disaster. That is the only thing that should be under discussion. I'll point to how President Obama handled some situations, certainly not hurricanes, but I always go back to his statement after James Foley
be what happens when the storm hits and making sure people are evacuated and that their lives aren't at risk. This is going to be, is there economic damage? Are the highways damaged so we can't bring goods to market? There are going to be other consequences as a result of this, and the way that the president handles it, both in action and the way the agencies work together to rescue people in the aftermath, is also key, because that was a lot of the problem with Katrina as well.
Well, and the thing that you have in similarities, and we saw this with, it was a superstorm here on the East Coast, as they called it, Sandy, is, you know, by like day 6 or 7 in towns where you had outages and it was snowing after. I don't know if people remember, but it was summertime and then it was snowing. So you're out of your home. Where were you going to go on the East Coast that you could get out of the way? It was a little bit more difficult to do that inland because it was so far-reaching. So many millions of people were. So you think about this. This could go on for days, as you say, and the president's response then has to keep up with that.
I think there's an important point to be made for General Kelly being in this position. Think of someone who knows how to move assets, as he did as commander of SOCOM, someone who looks at the capabilities. There's a reason you're at Randolph. You have air assets there that can be deployed. You have ground assets that can move out from there. You have other bases surrounding the area, even over to Yuma, Arizona, that can be brought into this. General Kelly, and who's someone who has been in that combatant command structure, knows how to move these assets around. He knows how to deploy them, and he has a good team. Tom Bossert is very capable. So the president actually has a great tactical team that can follow through.
To Harris's point, that there have been studies, and Janice Dean has been pointing this out, most deaths from a hurricane occur from flooding. And in fact, there was a study done some years ago. It looked at hurricanes from 1970 to 1999, that most deaths actually occur from inland flooding and not even from the storm surge. So that is why this is a storm that will play out in the lives of people in the days and weeks and months and even potentially years to come, given the severity of it and the ensuing rainfall.
All right, we're going to continue to cover what's happening in response and preparation for Hurricane Harvey.